Hey there guys, welcome to the final video that I'm doing in the Rabbit Holes and Rodeos series, focused on thinking about getting your admission into the MBA college or school of your choice. We've previously discussed a lot of aspects. Firstly, what should be the motivations when you're thinking of doing your master's in business administration, whether you should think about choosing a full-time MBA or you should do a part-time MBA, what should be the location of this particular degree that you're looking to pursue, what are some of the financial aspects that you need to think about, and how you can optimize your decision making by looking at various things. And finally, this particular episode that I'm kind of recording is focused more on how do you use all of those things collaboratively, but then also keep in mind some of your own internal motivators as you kind of start out on your MBA journey and then go ahead and make that particular decision. So what we're going to talk about is essentially how things kind of need to align. So I always think about Steve Jobs' quote when he thinks you can't connect, when he kind of says that you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards. And essentially that's a lot of things that you will actually realize when you start out on your MBA journey, and that's something that I realized when I started out on my MBA journey. So I think firstly, when you think about it, there's it's one of the toughest decisions that you can possibly think about, right? So when I was thinking about whether I should do a master's, I obviously had a lot of other things going for me, right? So I could have delayed my master's, kind of switched jobs, probably considered doing something else. Probably instead of focusing on a business degree, I could have chosen going down a data science track, kind of looked at other in-demand skills, go there. I had already moved out from New Delhi, where I was born. I had moved to Singapore, so I had an option to kind of move forward, also look at other geographies, potentially looking at Europe as a location where I could relocate towards Dubai, or for instance the United States. But then again, you have to weigh all those decisions against the choice of doing a master's or an MBA, and it has a lot of cost element involved in it. It has a time element involved in it, so you have to think along all those different factors as you kind of go ahead and pursue your life decision. And I think, like, if you think about it from from a very utopian perspective or a very optimistic perspective, a lot of people will say, you wish there was like a magical sorting hat which would kind of like just sit on top of your head and be like, this is the ideal route that you should take, or this is the school that you should end up at. So once you've kind of decided that you do want to pursue your master's degree, the question is like, which school do you end up choosing, right? Or what's the next path that you would do? And there's a lot of noise out there. This particular noise actually stems from the fact that there's multiple rankings. There'll be different people that you speak to. A lot of these people will be very optimistic about the schools they went to. Some of them will be pessimistic about the schools they went to. Some of them will kind of tell you that, why don't you just do your MBA in your home country? Why do you want to spend so much money? Others will tell you should definitely go to pursue an MBA outside, go to an Ivy League, get that kind of exposure. And when you look at all the rankings, right, a lot of these are sponsored, so you'll start seeing variances in the rankings. Some schools will not even participate in the rankings, and at other times you'll also start seeing very diluted information in terms of what the action on ground aspects are. So I think it's very important that when you're thinking about pursuing your particular MBA, you also need to think of it from a perspective of speaking to people who are actually in those institutions or have graduated, so that they can actually give you the view from boots on the ground. And that's actually the most important thing when you're actually considering pursuing your particular degree. So I think amidst all of this, one of the most important things that really helped me personally were decision trees. And the reason that decision trees actually work is because it's very logical, and having personally studied the sciences in 11th and 12th grade, and not doing that well, by the way, I do have that kind of perspective where I would like to view things very logically. And obviously, as you kind of like go into a business degree or a management degree, which I did pursue when I was in college, that kind of gives you other elements that you should consider. So the science view is very logical. It's also very unidimensional at times, whereas the business view is actually more holistic, but then probably not the most logical. You do need a lot of frameworks, which obviously when you go and pursue your MBA degrees, you will see those coming through. So essentially, when we talk about these particular decision trees, what I kind of did was I kind of started out thinking about that, if the first question you need to answer for yourselves is, do you want to pursue an MBA? So let's say the answer to that particular question is yes, right? So then probably you go down to the next part, which is essentially, do you want to do this degree on a full-time basis? Do you want to do this degree on a part-time basis? So if you're saying that you want to do it on, and if you don't know the answer, essentially some of the earlier videos can help. Likewise, if you don't know whether you want to pursue a MBA or not, you should probably check out the first video in this particular series. Then essentially the next question then becomes like, are finances a concern? If they are, then probably the third video in this particular series called Moneyball will help you quite a bit, where I kind of compare the costs of the NUS, the NUS MBA of both a full-time and a part-time one, the INSEAD MBA as well as the ISB MBA, and then I kind of play it back in terms of the payback period of each of these master's degrees. Finally, the next part is, have you given the GMAT if you've kind of sorted out these first three things? If you haven't, then the point is like, what are you waiting for? Like that's the most critical component, and it also helps you answer a lot of questions around which universities will you be eligible for. Most universities will actually accept even lower scores provided you have a very holistic profile, but typically having the bare threshold is usually helpful. Anything above a 700 or 720 is considered good in my opinion. I personally did not have a very high GMAT score, but then again I did not need that because I was doing a part-time degree. If I was choosing to pursue a full-time degree, then essentially I would have aimed to get anywhere around 750 plus to get admission in the schools that I would have liked to look at. Finally, I think the next part is that once you've gone through this, essentially what you'll start doing is you'll start having two kinds of schools. So the first schools are essentially your top schools, the schools you want to go to. These could be anywhere between 3 to 5. Then you'll have a backup schools, which are essentially schools which are not your first priority, and they're still considered exceptionally good. It's just that given a choice, you would like to go to your top schools as compared to these ones, and hopefully there will be some amount of motivation for you to still pursue these, and these can be anywhere between about 2 to 3. And then finally there's like a very safe school which is probably not even ranked in the top 10 or 15. It's considered as a good school overall when you compare it from a global perspective, and there's the likelihood that you might get a good scholarship in that particular school, but essentially it's not a school that you would like to pursue if given all things being perfectly working out for you perfectly fine. Now, after you've kind of like drawn up this broader list which has your the top schools, the backup schools, and then the not so great schools, what you then need to do is you need to think about it like, what is it that you want to do post your MBA, right? So one is that you have a career trajectory. Let's say you're a management consultant today, you want to continue on that particular trajectory, and that's perfect, right? Because your goal is clear. Some people would typically have a very different background. So some people would be in, let's say, accounting, or they might be in audit and they want to make the shift to management consulting. So what then becomes very important is that, are the schools that you're looking to attend, are they in line with your individual post MBA goals? And if the answer to those questions is no, then probably you need to start knocking out a few schools from those from that list that you have drawn up. I think in addition to that, it's also important to check what is the kind of salary jump that you get out of joining these particular schools. So if the salary jump is not very high, then essentially it's not even worth pursuing, right? Because if your pre and post MBA salaries are going to be similar, then the amount that you're spending is going to be quite futile. The next part is more looking at the recruiter, the recruitment reports that would come out, and these are essentially what are the companies that will hire from here. And what I would encourage you to think about is look at the top 5 companies that you would like to work for, and see if those companies actually hire, and what is the quantum that they will hire in. So if they're only hiring 1 or 2 people, the chances of you getting that job, unless you're exceptional, top of the batch, probably a merit scholar, becomes quite low. So if you are those things and you think you can achieve that, then perfect, go for that school. But if those are things that are a concern for you, then probably it's important to have a real deep think about those particular schools you're looking at. And then the last bit is essentially just go down to LinkedIn, look at the profiles of some of the batches. Most of these schools will typically have their previous alumni as well as current alumni and their profiles on their websites. Look and compare how does your current profile compare against theirs, and that will give you some amount of confidence in terms of what is the likelihood of you getting into that particular school. And it will also help you readjust in that grander list in terms of your top schools, your backup schools, your not so great schools, and then move them around based on the profile that you have, the score that you have, as well as whether it's even the right school for you based on your post MBA career trajectory that you are looking at. And at the end of all of this, that longer list, which was anywhere between 8 to 10 schools, now will start narrowing down to 3 to 5 schools. And I'm not saying that's the optimal number. It can vary. For some people, they will apply to 10 schools. Some people will apply to only 2 schools. I applied to 1 school personally because that's the one I wanted to get into, and luckily I actually managed to get into that. But essentially, always think about what works best for you. And then finally, I hope that amidst all of this, and the reason that I say this is that when I started my MBA journey, it was in India. I was actually planning to give the CAT, which is the common admission at the start, that it's going to take 7 years. I would have probably freaked out. But during those 7 years, I had the experiences which made me ready to pursue the MBA at the point in time that I did pursue it, and it also helped me make the most of it. I hope you guys have found this video useful. If you did like this video, please do like it. Please do share, please do subscribe to this particular channel. It means a lot. See you guys around. Have a good one. Bye bye.